We are now live. Okay,
Okay, fantastic.
now, well, hi everybody. My name is Ernestine Lyons, and
Hi.
okay,
Okay.
we're getting some feedback here. All right. So my name is Ernestine Lyons, and I am the host of Quick to Politic, the social commentary podcast that interviews locals who are doing interesting things. And, we're having political conversations, and we are engaging in, everything, that has to do with the social and the political, bringing it all together. All right. And my special guest here is JeDonna Dingus, and she is running for a Grosse Pointe school board. And so say hello, JeDonna.
Hey everyone, how are you? It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Ernestine. I appreciate it.
All right. Awesome. And I am super excited to have you on the show. You came knocking on my door and you were just like, I'm running for school board, and I loved everything you had to say. So therefore, I just want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and just tell us why you decided to run.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much again for having me. So I'm JeDonna Dingus. I am a Grosse Pointe Woods resident. I've lived in the Grosse Pointes for 12 years. I lived in the park for about 11 years. And then we've been in the woods since last year. We moved out of the park after my family and I were subjected to a hate crime when a neighbor, a white supremacist, put a Klan flag in his window facing our home. This is 30 days prior to that, we found a full container of gasoline in our recycle bin, which was adjacent to our house. So someone had gone into our backyard and put a full container of gasoline into our recycle bin. And then 30 days later, I found the Klan flag. And so we went through the process of seeking to prosecute and so forth, and prosecutor Worthy, they did a great job, but the way that the ethnic intimidation law is written, they weren't able to prosecute this person. My daughter was very frightened and terrorized. And so we moved. And we moved to Grosse Pointe Woods, and I absolutely love it. We have some really, really nice neighbors, and it's super quiet, and we just really like it. And I love being close to the freeway too. So it makes it very, very nice. I am a second generation entrepreneur. I own a business called Margot and Max. It's in Ferndale. And I started it at my dining room table in Grosse Pointe Park with little more than a strong work ethic, a Facebook page, and a single pair of earrings. My mom and dad were entrepreneurs, and my daughter is also an entrepreneur. So it kind of runs in the family. But we started in Grosse Pointe Park at the dining room table, as I said. Then I moved into a second floor walk up and at Mac and Nottingham, and we were there for a couple of years. And then we moved to Ferndale. We were on Livernois. And then right ahead of COVID, I got real ambitious and I expanded into a 3,000 square foot storefront. And we opened on March 7th of 2020. And we were closed by March 15th of 2020 because of COVID. Because I have a lung disorder, I have an autoimmune disorder called sarcoidosis. I decided to, we decided to remain closed, just to keep myself healthy and my neighbors and family and so forth. So we've been doing Facebook Lives, which we do amazingly well. And we kind of it's an unusual format. We have 5 mannequins and they kind of model the clothes. And so it's really fun. So you have to check it out. But I have a degree from the University of Detroit, Mercy, and it's U of D Mercy now, but it was U of D at the time, and I like to say U of D, go Titans. And I worked for Detroit Parent Network for several years doing parental involvement work, parental engagement work, student involvement, student engagement, student achievement, student enrollment, and retention. And I love doing that work. Getting parents involved in their students' education and helping them to be advocates for their children and parents and caregivers, because we know that there are people who show up, adults who show up for young people who are not their parents. So I like to say parents and caregivers, right? So I have done that type of work. So part of the reason that really the sole reason that I'm running for the school board is that I attended a school board meeting a few months ago, and I watched a young man who's 14 years old, who's now a freshman at Grosse Pointe North, um, come to the microphone at a board meeting and tell the board about his concerns about the school that he attended at the time, which was Parcells. He expressed his concerns and kind of poured his heart out. And in a room full of adults, after sitting through a 4-hour long board meeting, and only one adult even acknowledged his presence on that stage, and that was Dr. Bishop.
Wow. Wow.
And I went home that night. I was really upset. His mom was sitting there sobbing because she watched her child be ignored. And I went home that night and I said, somebody, this can't be. This cannot, we can't allow this to happen. Somebody has to fix it. And the universe said, you're the person, you fix it. And so I took up the challenge that I agree. Sometimes we're looking for somebody to come in and save us, but then we have to go in the closet and dust off our capes and save ourselves. So I decided that it was time for me to step up and put my money where my mouth is and have skin in the game and run for school board. So that's what I'm doing.
I love that. And you just wanted to be that change. You saw that there wasn't necessarily enough, that this person should have been addressed. This is a kid saying that, he was being vulnerable. He's saying that,
Yes.
it's not pleasant for him. These are the types of microaggressions that I'm, dealing with. And, then nothing, crickets. And, you felt that, this shouldn't be the case. And, we should have
Absolutely.
all of our kids listened to. Our kids should feel seen and heard.
Absolutely. Well, we know that when students feel seen, when they feel safe, when they feel included, when they feel heard, that we have better academic outcomes. And so when we talk about student achievement and we talk about enrollment and we talk about school rankings and all of those pieces, the first thing is that the students need to feel safe. And we know that Grosse Pointe is and Harper Woods, they're pretty safe communities. And we're in a safe school district. We live in a safe community. But students need to feel safe emotionally. They need to feel like they are included. They need to feel like they're stakeholders in their education. So I think that those are really important pieces. And this young man did come to the microphone and express. He was very vulnerable. I had tears in my eyes, and I'm a pretty tough person. So I do cry at cat commercials, though, because I love cats. But I'm a pretty tough person, and he did. It made me cry. When he talked about some of the microaggressions and the things that he experienced at school, and how he has to make himself small in order to not be targeted. I was shocked, and I was especially shocked that the board did not listen to this young man, and that cannot be. A board of education should listen to its constituents, whether they be community stakeholders or parents or caregivers, and especially students, because the whole system exists for the students, right? That's why it's there. And so we ought to be listening to students' voices, because if you want to know what's going on in a school, that's who you ask. You ask the students. They will tell you exactly what's going on.
Well, you know what? You mentioned that we need to be listening to the students more, and we need to really pay attention to, the issues that they're facing. And so, what are some of the bigger picture needs of the student body in the Grosse Pointe School District, whether it's in the Pointes, Harper Woods, and how does your agenda sort of align with them? And so what are some big ticket agenda items that you feel that, we as, I now live in the Grosse Pointe School Districts after years of living in the Harper Woods School District. I'm a Harper Woods public school product. And, now, I live in this district where, folks are having different types of conversations. And,
Sure.
We really need to really understand, like, what is it that the students truly need, and how does your, platform align with that?
Well, that's a great question, Ernestine, and thank you for that question. So we know that there's no, we should not take a one size fits all approach to education. because each of these students are individuals. But I think that at the top of the list, we know that diversity, equity, and inclusion should be there. And when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is not just around race, it's around a multitude of things. When we talk about diversity, we're talking about people, all different kinds of people. We're talking about people of different races, cultures, faiths, gender identity, sexual orientations. When we talk about equity, we're talking about how they're educated, how we're delivering the education, okay? And then when we talk about inclusion, we're talking about everybody. So we're talking about, let's say we're having a party, right? We want everyone to be invited to the party. We want everybody to be able to get on the dance floor. We want everyone to be able to submit their music for the playlist. That's how you include everyone. And so I think that that's at the top of the list, because when we know that the high achieving students are going to do well wherever they are, whether they go to school in Harper Woods, whether they go to Cass in Detroit or Renaissance, whether they go to Mercy or U of D High, wherever they are. The students who are in the middle and the students who are at the bottom, we need to lift those students up, because we know a school district is only as great as its most vulnerable students feel that they are being treated. Okay, so if a school district says that it's great, but when you ask the students who are the marginalized how they feel, and they say that they aren't being treated well, they don't feel included, they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, are you really great? That's a question that you have to ask yourself. And so when we look at students at what they need, one of the big issues right now, of course, is mental health. Over the last decade, there has been a rise in mental health issues with young people. The numbers were like 22% at one time, but now it's 1 in 3. High school students, well, they said 1 in 3 students 1 in 3 young people between the ages of 3 and 24 are dealing with some type of mental health issue, whether that be anxiety or depression, ADHD, and so forth. Okay. And so that's one of the key issues that we need to address is mental health. The conversation came to the forefront as we were working through the pandemic, which I'm so happy about, because I think that there was a stigma attached to talking about mental illness. And I think some of that stigma has fallen away, but we still need to continue to talk about it. Yesterday was International Mental Health Day. And I think that every day should be Mental Health Day, because we should be talking about it every single day. So we need to make sure that students are getting what they need around mental health. Governor Whitmer just signed, put into the new budget, the 2022-2023 budget, some additional dollars for schools for mental health, which I think is excellent. But I also think that part of what needs to happen is with the budget is ensuring that there's some money there for teachers too, because teachers were dealing with all the same things that the students were dealing with, and they were helping the students deal with the things. So teachers need support too. And then the other thing is giving students a broad range of curriculum to choose from, because we know that every student, even though the conversation is everyone's going to matriculate to college, we know that that is not true. Is not a path that every student wishes to take, and that's okay. And I think that we should look at things like the skilled trades. As I launched my campaign, one of the things that I did was I sought out the endorsement of the Carpenters and Millwrights Union, because I was very interested in building a partnership with them to bring skilled trades to the Grosse Pointe School District, because I think the students need to have access to skilled trades. They're important. They keep our infrastructure going, our roads, our bridges, our schools, our hospitals. Skilled trades people make that happen. And so they repair our roads. They repair our bridges. They repair our schools when schools are closed over the summer. Those skilled trades people are in there making repairs. And so we need to give students access and be very aggressive in our approach to getting students access to the skilled trades. And so that's one of the things that I thought was very, very important. And so I have set up a meeting with the Carpenters and Millwrights Union on November 11th with Dr. Dean and Dr. Hartley, so that we can tour their facility and do a lunch and learn more about the skilled trades. So I think that we should be giving students every opportunity that we can. And like I said, if it doesn't look like a traditional, college education, let's give them the opportunities to find out what they want to do. And that's why we need to include them in the conversation, include students in the conversation, so that they can have every opportunity that's out there, every opportunity possible.
Thank you so much. I mean, like, we've got a whole, slew of things that you are, really a proponent of. We've got mental health, we've got diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or DEIB, funding for teachers. And then we've also got skilled trades and, focus on skilled trade. And with you also being an entrepreneur, I just feel like that entrepreneurial mindset is something that you've already, as an active parent, instilled in, your not only as with your child, who is a product of Grosse Pointe schools, but, also that's something that I'm quite sure you would want to make sure is the focus for, the Grosse Pointe school district. And that kind of leads me into, more of one of our questions about, any events, or you talked about endorsements and, any ways in which we can find you out there, or participate or volunteer with you and be a part of the campaign.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, I am, you can definitely connect with us on social media. I have a Facebook page and Facebook and Instagram, because, you have to have Instagram, and a website. And we are still continuing to have meet and greets. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with the principal of Grosse Pointe South, Mr. Hamka. I've met with Dr. Murray last week. That was a really interesting conversation. She is the principal of Grosse Pointe North. And tomorrow evening, I will be at the Grosse Pointe South Mothers Club. All of the candidates are invited to an event there where people can come out and hear from each of us. So I will be at that event. So that is a way that people can connect with me. And I'll be sharing information on I will share information on my Facebook page about those events so that people can find out. But if people want to reach out, folks can reach out via text or email, or by messaging on us on one of our social media platforms, or they can send an email to JDingus, JDingus for FORGPBOE@gmail, and we'll put that information up. I'll make sure that all the information is out there, but you can reach out in any of those ways and get questions answered. If you have a question about my experience or education, or anything, please reach out. I'll be happy to answer questions. I've received emails every day and messages every day about our platform. As you mentioned, around endorsements, as I mentioned, I was endorsed by the Carpenters and Millwrights Union, which I'm very proud of that endorsement. Michigan Now endorsed me as well. And 3 former school board trustees, Judy Gaffa and Dan Rusky and Kathleen Apke, endorsed me, which I was very proud of, because they certainly know what it takes to get the job done. So I was super proud of that endorsement. I've also been endorsed by Congresswoman Haley Stevens and State Senator Stephanie Chang, and local Grosse Pointe Park City Councilman Fakas Raylan. So I'm really proud of those endorsements. I've worked very hard to earn people's trust. And I am just really, Ernestine, I have a heart for the kids. I just want the kids to be okay. And I want them to have the things that they need. And I want us to be able to to advocate for the young people, because young people don't always feel like they have a voice. I grew up, I'm older than you are. I grew up in an era where we
Not
were
by
told that,
much though. You're not.
yeah.
Nuh-uh.
Well, look, if I told you the number, well, I'm not ashamed to say I'm 59.
Oh, okay. I'm almost 40. So not
Oh
that much.
yeah, you're a baby. You're a baby. But but I grew up in an era where we were told that children were to be seen and not heard. And the young people now are certainly not those people. And I am so glad that they aren't. And when we know better, we do better, right? And so we know that young people have a voice, and we ought to listen to their voices, and we ought to be willing to partner with them. I always say partnership versus relationship, because sometimes people have relationships and they feel like they can, duck out. Like this is not working out. I'm out of here. But with partnerships, partnerships are a little bit tougher to dissolve. And so we ought to be partnering with young people to ensure that they have what they need. If we ask them questions, they will tell you the answers. That you can remove the guesswork, because if you ask them, they'll tell you. When I launched my campaign, I started out by the first person that I talked to was a 7-year-old student from Ferry Elementary named Sela. She interviewed me about why I was running for the school board. She asked me some really good questions.
That is so cute.
It was so cute. I loved it. But one of the questions that Sela asked was, "What are you going to do for the brown people, Miss JeDonna?" It was so cute. But I appreciated that so much. So this is a 7-year-old child. And she's a 7-year-old Caucasian child asking me, what am I going to do for people who don't look like her? And that was powerful. And I think that representation matters. People want to see themselves reflected when they look out, right? So we need to make sure that we have a diverse team within our school district. We need to make sure that the teaching staff, the administration, that it reflects the community. And that means that diversity is important, right? We need to make sure that students feel like they're part of the solution. I mean, I would love to see us have students on our board. Detroit Public Schools, they have students on their board. And so the students don't have the voting power. They can't vote. But that does not mean that it is not important for them to be there, because we know that change is incremental, right? We know that students being on the board does not mean that they're going to be able to make, they're not going to be fiduciaries, and they're not going to be able to make those types of decisions. But having a seat at the table is very important. And as Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, build your own table. They don't give you a chair at the table, bring your own chair. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about students. Let's give them a seat at the table, so that we can find out straight from the students what's going on. Because when I talked to students, they gave me a lot of information, bless you, that I would not have gotten otherwise. And we can guess and we can speculate, but when you ask them, they will give you the answers.
Yes, and thank you for that blessing. I just sneezed off camera. But I actually, want to kind of go back to the giving the kids the seat at the table.
Sure.
I think that this generation, we've got the Gen Zers, and then we've got the ones who are younger than that, and now entering into this space of, being this independent little person who now has their own thoughts. And, I just think that they're becoming increasingly more aware of their own mental health and their own feelings. And they are very much so, like you mentioned, the little girl who asked about people who are not her, why would that, normally even concern her? But I think that, this generation is actually being more cognizant of others and, being less likely to bully, because they want to support, anybody who is maybe neurodivergent or, has like a different sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression. And they want to, uplift everybody. And I think that's something that we're, experiencing younger and younger. And I'm really glad that, that's something that you want to make sure that we're keeping the kids and their feelings in mind. We're keeping in school shouldn't be so rigid. It should be a place for you to express yourself, and you should be able to work in tandem with folks who are making the rules, because your generation is seeing things differently, and we're having different conversations that you and I didn't have when we were coming up in school. And so I want to thank you for that. And I also had just one last question, and that's about it for our questions. And we call it Quick to Politic because we want to keep it quick and get folks to have really good conversations and keep the conversations going. I do have some nice comments in the chat here where we've had some folks, say some wonderful things, about kids and involvement. And we've got a Harper Woods School Board person saying people need a shift the paradigm, and this involves education, love, and accepting others. Like everything
Absolutely.
I just said. Thank you so much, Reginald, for that.
Yes, thank you.
And then we also have absolutely 100% student voices need to be heard. Thank you, Tara, who's also a teacher. And so I just wanted to personally ask about the arts. I'm new to the school district, so how are the arts programs, like all the creative endeavors, in the Points? Are they well funded? And are these things that, you see a need to continue to, have students be able to express themselves creatively? And I don't know, just what are your perspectives? You're a stylish, fashionable person. You have a boutique, and
Thank you.
great fashion sense. I love the frames and the lipstick matching.
Thank you.
But I just kind of, what are the status? What's the status of the arts? And that's just a personal question. And I'll open it up to anybody else who's viewing if you have questions.
Sure. So the arts are alive and well in Grosse Pointe, in the Grosse Pointe School District. The choir program is amazing. The musicals that they put on, my daughter was a choir kid. And from Pierce to North and South, they do, in Brownell as well, they do an amazing job with the arts and students drawing. There's a lot of super talented kids in this school district. And so the arts are doing, the art programs within the Grosse Pointe schools are very, very good. And students are certainly encouraged to be creative. And they just have some great stuff going on. There's a TV production studio. So for young people who want to get in, and I know young people who have graduated and they're working in television, and they got their training at Grosse Pointe South. So it's really amazing, the things that they're doing. So yes, the arts are alive and well, and I'm very, very happy. And band, all of that it's well funded. The band boosters do a great job at both schools. So at both high schools, because there's not just two schools, both high schools, North and South. I was lived on the South End, and so my daughter went to Grosse Pointe South, but I'm on the North End. Hey, I'm a person. Look, I'm like, hey, go Blue Devil, go Norseman. I don't want to get in trouble. I like them both, but I don't want anybody to be like, wait a minute. But the schools celebrate arts, and I love that because art is very important. That's how a lot of young people are able to express themselves. And to your point about young people just being able to be who they are at school, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it is so important that, because you are absolutely right. It was completely different when I grew up in 1981, when I graduated from high school in 1981. I'm telling my age, but I'm not ashamed. That we just did not talk about a lot of things. We didn't talk about mental health. We didn't talk about the LGBTQI plus community. There are a lot of things we did not discuss that we discuss now openly, and I think that we should. Young people need to be, school should be a safe space for young folks to be who they are. Our teachers should be supported and not micromanaged. We need to let them do their jobs. It just, I don't understand people acting like it's no big deal, like anybody could be a teacher. Now, if I went back to school, my degree is in communications. If I went back to school and got a teaching certificate, I'm not sure if I'd be good at teaching. but I don't have a teaching. I don't have a teaching certificate. I'm not a teacher, and I have no idea how to teach. And so, why would I try to tell the teachers how to do their job? And these people who are pushing these agendas, most of them, these are not educators. And these are our teachers are professionals in, and my hat's off to the teachers in Grosse Pointe and everywhere, because they do hard work. And we know that they aren't in it for the money because they don't get paid nearly enough for what they do. And many times they're taking money out of their own pocket to, whether it's buying granola bars or snacks for their students, or buying extra supplies, or buying things to, decorate their classrooms so that the students feel welcome. So we need to make sure that teachers have what they need to be successful, because we know when teachers flourish, students flourish. Those two things fit together like a puzzle. And we just, I think that schools are so important, and public education is so important. Like you, I'm a product of the public schools. I believe in public education. I believe that we need to fight for our public schools to make sure that they stay strong, so that they're here, there for our children and our grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren. And this is part of the reason that I'm running. I want to make sure that our schools remain strong and that they are not taken over by these forces that want to create this narrative that teachers are doing something wrong. Teachers are coming to work every day and they're giving 110% to these young people. And that's what we want them to do. Give 110% to these babies. I know some of them are 18. They're still babies to me. Because they deserve
anything
our
under 20 is, yes,
right.
babies.
That's what I'm saying.
They still have that cognitive development, and they still
Yes.
need that nurturing. So
Absolutely. And they deserve our best. And I'm, even though my daughter is 23 years old and I don't have children in the school district, that doesn't mean that I don't care. I do care. As a matter of fact, in August, when I heard that the school district was no longer going to be serving breakfast at 5 of our schools to low-income students, I began to ask why. And it was due to low participation. And I challenged that with the superintendent, saying, one student, if one student is showing up at a school hungry, that's one too many. And we cannot not feed children. And so I offered to partner to leverage some resources, relationships that I had with organizations who are working towards food, to address hunger and food inequity. And as a result, now every student in the Grosse Pointe public school system receives free breakfast this school year.
Wow, that is quite an accomplishment. And
thank you.
Food insecurity is really important. And like you said, if it's just one person that's being impacted, then that's one too many. So I was going to close things out by saying, are there any messages that you'd like to impart to teachers? But I think that you just spoke to teachers, just talking to them about, how hard they work, how many certifications they have to have, because pedagogy is more than just coming in and pointing at a chalkboard. And, when we have these discussions about just about anybody being able to teach because of this lack of teachers, it's really more about, we need to continue to equip the teachers with what they need. You and I, as folks who are wanting to get involved and change the rules and laws and, become legislators, in my case, I want to continue to change the law so that we can have more funding and, for educators, and so that people want to go into this field. And I think it's important to recognize the plight of what they go through, because pedagogy is, dealing with students and their emotions. It's consoling them. It's being nurses. It's being able to anticipate, what's going on with kids as they grow and develop, and how their brains are different at processing things. So there's so much there, and there are so many skills that they have to have in addition to being nurse, mom, teacher, being security guard, being, also coach. And so there are just so many aspects, and I'm glad that you sent a message speaking directly to our teachers. But I also want to close things out by asking if there are any, final words for residents with Election Day coming up, and voters, and then of course to our students about, your vision on education and why you are needed in this election.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me again, Ernestine. I really appreciate the opportunity. The number one message I want to send to students is that you matter. Your voices matter. You physically matter. The whole system is built around you. And you, I promise you that I will advocate for you. I've been doing it for pretty much my whole life. And I'm willing to leverage every resource that I can get my hands on to ensure that students have what they need to be successful, because they literally are the future. Okay, you're the future leaders of this, of your cities, your towns, this state, and this nation, and this world. Young people are the future leaders, and we need to equip them with everything that they need to be successful. And that means if we can get a hold of it, we should give it to them. Okay. And I'm not talking about, spoiling people rotten. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about giving them the tools that they need to be successful. Our teachers, I have your back. I want you to have everything that you need to be successful. I want you to know that we value you. We appreciate you. Thank you for everything that you do. And especially the staff that is the counselors, because it's not just teachers and staff, but especially the counselors, because they are dealing with a lot of kids who are dealing with a lot of issues. I mean, we can't deny it. 1 million people in the United States were lost due to COVID. So people have lost moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles and neighbors and friends and loved ones. There are holes in people's hearts that will never be filled. And so we have to give people grace and mercy. And we also need to thank the people who are doing the work to help these young people cope with what they're coping with. So thank you to all of our teachers and all of the staff who work with the young people every day. Thank you so much. To the parents and caregivers, I've got your backs too. I'm willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. I'm going to try to bring every resource that I can to these young people, whether it be skilled trades, making sure that there's breakfast there for the students, whatever the case may be. I'm not going to say that I'm going to solve every problem, because that would be being disingenuous. I can't solve every problem, but I'm willing to listen, because that's part of being on the board too, being an active listener and being willing to tell people that you can't solve it, because we're not going to be able to fix everything. But I do think that we should try to listen and try to find solutions. So I am a problem solver. I'm not just going to complain about it. I'm going to be about working to find solutions, like I did with the breakfast program. Okay. I saw that we had that gap there with the skilled trades. Like, I'm trying to build that partnership with the skilled trades union so that we can bring that for our students.
Awesome. Okay? And already working at it. Love it.
Already working before I'm even in the seat. And here's the other thing that I want to say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Whether I'm elected or not, I won't stop working for these students, because they deserve it. Okay, so and not that I don't want to win. Please don't misunderstand. I hope that I earn your votes, and I hope that I am elected to the school board. That's the plan. But even if I am not elected, that meeting with the carpenters and millwrights is on November 11th. That's after the election. So whether I'm elected or not, I'm still going to show up every day and try to do the best that I can for these young people, because they deserve it. We need to make sure that these young people have what they need so that they can be the leaders that they want to be in our community. I believe in you, young people. I'm here for you. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that inspiring message. And, you've left us with something to walk away from and, think about at the polls. And I know you have my vote personally. And so,
thank you.
Yes, thank you all who joined us out there in the audience and who are watching in the playback. And thank you so much for, again, being our guest here today. And Yeah, we'll see everybody out there on election day. Remember, JeDonna Dingus for Grosse Pointe School Board. And then what day is election day?
November 8th. So it
November
is,
8th. All
yeah,
right.
Tuesday, November 8th. Please vote JeDonna Dingus for Grosse Pointe School Board. Thank you so much, everyone. It was so nice talking to you, Ernestine. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you.